Hi, my YouTube family. This is Melody from Home Garden and Fashion. Happy Valentine's Day to all of you, to all my subscribers and viewers. A very, very happy Valentine's. Hi, today's video is we're going to do a story. I haven't done a story for a long time, so I was thinking about doing a story. Now, this story is about a king and his followers. So, king and queen were very happy with their one and only son, and king and queen went to for vacation, and they went to visit other countries, and they wanted to see the how everybody else is doing in the world. So they visited another new country, and king and queen were visiting the country through the ship. In the ship, so there were some disturbance on the sea. So the ship halted in a village for a night, and king and queen had pretty much everything available on the sea, and it was a huge sea just for the king and queen and their one and only son, the prince. And they decided to stay on the ship, but during around midnight the water rose and the sea was going crazy, and it was full moon night. So other advisors advised the king that it would be wise for the king not to stay on the ship, because as the water is rising and she is going crazy. So the king, queen, and their son, they got off the sea, and they got off their very luxurious, expensive boat. And they were not used to walking by foot because they lived a really elegant life, very rich. But since this was a very small island, and that there were very few people in a village, and this island was full of trees, and inside the trees there was this magical little huts, and all of these huts were made by the people who lived there, and the population was only 20 people lived on that little island. And these 20 people were just some of them living by themselves, and some of them just husband wife. And these people were mostly on the third stage of their life, were in their 50s, and they just discovered the island, and they came there, and the land was available free for anybody who would just like to build a house or build business, make a community. So all these 20 families, they wanted to do that, and so it was roughly between 20 to 40 the population. So it was like 20 houses were there only, and these were built by the people helping each other. And these houses were built with tree and just mud and a cow manure and horse manure, things like that, everything made by whatever they can found in nature, because there was nothing else was available. So this was a very different change for king and queen. Now on that land there was an exception. Due to a shipwreck, there was a family, and this family had husband and wife and a daughter. Now that was just one exception, and everybody else was in the third stage of their life. So this little girl found herself very lonely on that island because she didn't have anybody her age to play with or go to school or anything, but it was up to these 20 families to make it a livable community. But since there was no other children, she was the only one. So anyway, the king and queen and the prince came to that village, and all the villagers were so thrilled and honored and blessed to have the king, queen, and their son. Now, the family with the little girl, the girl was around 15, 16, and the prince was around that same age. So this family, the one with the young girl, they invited the king and queen and the prince because they had some extra room. Now all these huts were made just one room, and everything was done in the room. And since this was the only one, the family there, they had another hut attached to it. So they had two huts attached with each other, and they made a door in between, so they had a little extra space. They give it to the queen, king, queen, and the prince. Now, as these people were living on bare minimum, and they slept on the floor, and they collected hay, and on top of that hay they made blankets out of sheep wool, and they got wool from the sheep skin, and then they made blanket out of that. So they put that on top of the hay, and it was pretty nice and warm, and they didn't have any furniture. They all sat on the floor, and they used only the hay or anything they found, or they created some leaves or yarn things, and that's what they use. And they use clay and wooden utensils to cook, and they had some metal pots and pan, iron pots and pans. But they lived on basically what they grew, and these villagers did not eat any animals. They just ate fruits and vegetables, whatever was available at that time. So the king and queen, they stayed the night, and as villagers all together, they cooked, and they had one assigned cooking area. They had one assigned bathrooms, and where they showered in rainwater. They kept the rainwater, storing the rainwater, and they had one designated area. There was nothing much for to say this is mine or this is yours. They just each had a heart, and then they had a centralized location for cooking. There was a fireplace, and they had the bathroom centralized location, and they had a little area where they wash their clothes by hand and hang it to dry, or get together, sitting together, or talking or building something, and they all together did the gardening and grew everything together, and then they cooked together and shared and ate. So basically it was all togetherness, and there was nothing and there was no money used, but when they helped out each others, or mm, whatever before they came to that place, if they had any money, that's all, but they didn't have any special place to keep it. And they used to go to town for something that they made, and they would just trade it with money, but there was money didn't play such major role in that community. So as king and queen were there in the night time, they had a very little light, and this light, what they created a fireplace, and that they enclosed the fireplace with some iron bars, some metal bars, and that's all. They didn't have any candles and things, and they did buy some candles from the city for special things. So this was the very special occasion for king and queen staying there. So they put in the king and queen's room a little candle. Then they saw the king and queen let their son be very um, arrogant and rude. So the villagers, they were raising that young lady, that little girl, that young lady, in a very certain way. The king and queen were surprised. That girl had to obey her parents. That girl had to pray in the morning, and then she had certain chores and certain rules. So when the king and queen asked those community that why those certain rules or certain chores or certain way for that girl to be acting or everybody else in that community, so the community believed something which was against king and queen's belief. The community believed that whatever we do or say, it has effect on our life, for this life and our next life. So everyone in the community were very, very careful on what word they're using, how they're using towards each other. No one in the community was allowed to say, this is mine, this is yours. No one in the community was allowed to say any mean, hurtful words to each other. No one in the community was allowed to lie, cheat, or hurt others in any way. And whatever they cooked, they equally shared with everybody. And then at night time, they all slept in their little huts, and their huts had uh, doors, but all the huts in between there was a space to go, but then in the sides they had doors, and they had bells. So if in any situation there were wild animals or any kind of problems, one person will come out of the hut and ring this giant bell they had, and this will wake up everybody in the community, and everybody in the community will come and stay up the night and help that person. But this was the rule, even though it didn't happen that much, but once in a while some wild animal will come. But they made a good fence and everything to make sure everybody was secure. But what the king and queen did not understand is how this entire community followed the rules about speaking. So before the king and queen left the community, they clearly wanted to understand that how is our words, what we say, what we do affects our present, past, future, and our next life. So the community sat down and explained to the king, and they also explained to the king as the prince, young prince, when something king said and young prince did not like, he would argue, and the community said that was very, very wrong for a child to be arguing with the parents or not listening to the parents, because now this behavior causing a problem in the sun's chart, where in his next life his sun sign is going to be weak or not present at all. So for that he's going to have to suffer in his next life for arguing and disrespecting his father in this life. Now this was very interesting to king and queen. So while living, the king and queen wanted to give lots of money, jewelry, things to this community, and to that their community leader had said no, he do not wish to take any money, jewelry or things, because this will cause fights, arguments, unhappiness and diseases in the community. And he said all the diseases came to the human beings because of wanting more, having more, saying this is mine, saying wrong things, being disrespectful, jealous, hurting others, building mansion after mansion, hoarding money and keeping things. All this causes diseases and unhappiness, and he did not want it that for his community. He wanted to build a community where there was everything which belonged to everybody, and there were no fights and no jealousy, no greed, no diseases. To this king and queen was so speechless. Now they left and then they went to their kingdom. After some time, the king and queen realized that they were not happy and they had a lot of diseases and problems. Also, their son was not obeying them, and as he grew up, he wanted to marry a princess from another land where the king and queen did not agree, but he did not care, and he was very disrespectful and rude. So king and queen decided to give all his property, assets, everything to all the poor people in that kingdom, and they took bare minimum what was allowed by that community, and then they went to the hut. Now what they took with them is a lot of manpower, and that manpower came in that community, and that manpower built 30 beautiful strong houses, not very huge, just one bathroom, one room, and where there was a child, 2 room. And these houses had something which is the doors and walls very strong, and built walls all around, so it was strong, so they do not have to worry about the forest animals coming there at night. And so little bit things that which they could use, and in a central location made like 10 bathrooms, and then it made a nice washroom, and it made a nice gardening area, and also a nice get together area, nice kitchen and fireplace. But it kept some of their things which they wanted to keep, but it also made the strong, mm, little strong hearts where it won't be destroyed by the nature or rain or snow or something, hurricane or animals. But on the other hand, it had natural touch too. They lived with their garden, growing their foods, and they could collect their rainwater as well. And there was a nice spring little bit far away, and King made with his manpower such a way so that that spring water was available in the central kitchen, so the villagers could go there and get the water and bring it to their house, and that's how they worked. And they had to keep water at night time for drinking because they didn't go to the common cooking place at night time because they were afraid there might be some forest animals at night time in the dark. So the king made a beautiful pathway from people's houses meeting to a central location, and then there is a huge pathway leading to the bathroom and the central kitchen, so the people could use the bathroom and not be afraid to go there or to the kitchen at night. King made all those things, but the community had a rule. After dark, they did not cook, they did not eat. Whatever cooking was done during the daytime. And then King also built next to the kitchen a central fire location where they could all come and gather around a fireplace and be warm in cold nights. So he did a lot of changes to the community, and king and the queen and their son, they lived there, and the young lady who was left alone, they got the lady married with the prince, so now she can start a family there. And everybody was looking forward to this little babies these two will create, so they all can raise those babies with new values and morals, where they will teach them to be kind and respectful to everyone in this world and not use any hurtful words, and just be kind to one another and grow everything together and sit down and share with everybody, and just create new kind of people. And they did not, literally did not have any diseases, to the surprise of the king and queen. And they have learned something so valuable, that all the human diseases were due to the fact of the bad behavior and greed and holding on to and hoarding money and things and possessions. But when human went back to the nature and start living in a nature as together, they did not have any diseases. So everybody in that community lived happy, and king named that kingdom Happy Kingdom. Now everybody was like, okay, so king, you left your kingdom, we want to name it as our village, not the kingdom. So they named it Happy Village. And that Happy Village grew to about 100 people. Slowly people started coming, and they started growing more food and becoming very happy. And but they had a rule: there will be no electricity and no electronics and no weapons and no possessions of like money, jewelry, things which you could start a fight. So these things weren't allowed, and everybody just made their small clothes or whatever, and they shared with each other and just lived happily ever after. And king and queen and the prince, they all lived happily without diseases, without problems. So I hope you like the story, and I will see you with many, many more. I love you all. I love you all very, very much, and I thank you so, so much from the bottom of my heart for this 30K subscriber. And I love each and every one of you. Thank you. Good night. Sweet dreams. Bye bye. Hi, my YouTube family. This is Melody from Home Garden and Fashion. Happy Valentine's Day to all of you, to all my subscribers and viewers. A very, very happy Valentine's